Good morning, y'all. How you doing? Welcome into another episode of Coffee and Conversation with your boy Joe Lockett. I'm here live at the Coffee Filter Parlor, and today's guest is amazing. And this guest on the show today, it happened because of you guys, right? I had somebody else planning to come in today, but because of what you guys did over the weekend and made one of my posts go viral, thank you so much. Thank you. Right? People reach out to me and got to talk and got a little meeting, got a little something. Let me tell you who's in the building. The one and only, if y'all have not heard, in Fairfield, Carver Jones Market is there. One of the baddest grocery stores in the land. But guess who I got in the building? The man behind the plan, okay? Y'all may not know his name. Let me go ahead and give you a little hint. It's Mr. Harris to you. To me, it's Mr. James Harris. So you guys hold tight. We're going to bring him on the show here in a little while. I'm excited to have him, for him to make the time to come on the show today. But I want to talk about something about community and togetherness really quickly here. I always try to give a positive message with our coffee. So make sure you grab your coffee, listen to my message, and get ready for the story we're going to tell. Community, friendships, and family, right? How important is that? Do you support others more than you support yourself? Do you support others, or do you go other places to do other things for other people than you do more so for yourself? Joe, what are you talking about? Like on a Saturday morning, right? Do you actually go do things in your neighborhood or go visit people closest to you, or do you go to other neighborhoods? Reason why I'm talking about this because it's something very important and dear to me. Is we always talk about how do we take care of our community. I don't care if you're white, black, Hispanic, Jewish. It doesn't matter, right? But what I speak foreign languages, right? But what I'm always going to do is protect my own community first. Because what I don't want to have to go do, what I did when I was a little kid, take y'all back just a tad bit. When I was a little boy, we would wake up on a Saturday morning. Hey, how you doing? Thank you. What's my coffee?
It's got an egg in it.
It got
It's special.
Thank you. It's a special call for me. Thank you so much. I'm going to drink it then, Lord. Thank you. When I got up on a Saturday morning, my mom and dad would get up in the little beat up car. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The older car that Papa was smoking. He had right? We get in the car on Saturday morning, ready to go to the grocery store because mom and dad had to go do a little shopping. We never went out the neighborhood. We would go down probably like 5 or 10 minutes away, right? We went to the A&P, right? It was Alex drugstore in our neighborhood where we was, right? But we never went out of the neighborhood. Honestly, I didn't know there was anything out of a certain radius where I lived at when I was a kid, right? I didn't know there was such thing as Mercedes Benz, BMWs, and nice cars until mom and dad would say, let's go driving on a Sunday. Y'all remember the Sunday ride? Let's get in the car. And they go over to the fancy houses, right? And then you see all this other stuff, like a whole new array of things, right? And you see these cars like, what's that kind of car? What's that kind of car? It ain't got no rims on it. It's quiet over here, right? Those are the things we're talking about. And the reason why I want to talk about this because I think community. I think we need to get back to this in our own neighborhoods and what we're doing. This is why this conversation is really good because we're about to get ready to go into today. We need to make sure that number one, we do excellence to ourselves. But when we will support each other, we need to make sure that we're intentional. This is the thing that I know in my community. I'm a black man. I'm gonna speak on this, right? You have to be intentional to make something successful wherever you are, right? And I think a lot of times we get habitual instead of intentional. Let me say this again. Sometimes we get more habitual than we get intentional, right? Because if you're used to going or doing something one place, right, you're not going to change because it's easy for you to get in a car and you just happen to get up on the highway and go to wherever you're going, right? You have to be intentional. The only way things change is when we become intentional to make a change in our life. Like if you overweight, you have to intentionally stop eating. You have to intentionally go to the gym, right? The way we get better in all communities, whether you in the white community, black community, Jewish community, Hispanic community, Asian community, is that they have to be intentional. And the one thing I'm gonna say about this, I'm gonna say this because it's my show. In the black community, we're not intentional enough. Okay. We complain about certain things for ourselves, but we continuously have a habitual habit to go sell ourselves to other communities. Other communities are intentional on what they do. You understand? They're intentional, right? My friends, they spend their money in their neighborhood. They very rarely go out of their neighborhood. So I would say to you guys today, a little heavy talk there, but I'm gonna bring it back down, right? When you go out your home, make sure that you're intentional about the things you're doing. If you have somebody that you know right? That you can spend some money with, whether it's $5 or $20. Do that. And the people that's got the businesses going on, my other thing is to you guys. When we are intentional, give us great customer service. When we're intentional, give us a great product, right? When we intentional, treat us like kings and queens, and we will continue to come back to you. But that's another problem. But with all that being said, America, I got a man who got the plan, who got all that going on, right? And you ain't got to go nowhere but to the Carver Jones Marketplace. His name is the one and only. I am so honored today to have him on the show, Mr. James Harris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How you doing this morning?
I'm good. I don't know if I deserve all that, but you said it. I did. Okay. I'm so grateful to be here today, and I love talking about the story. The story is not about me. The story is about a group of people that saw a need and looked at all the difficulties that doing what we're doing brings, but felt like it was worth it all to be able to love and serve on people well. And for me, that's it. I've always been a servant. And I don't say that just tongue in cheek. I really mean that. It's the joy of my life to be in the backdrop and help someone else, and now I'm having people do the same thing for me that I've done for 30 years for other people. So,
well, I'm going to say this. We have the one and only, the owner, the idea, the creator, right, of Carver Marketplace, right here in Birmingham, Alabama, in Fairfield. Y'all have seen him on TV. You can go YouTube. You can YouTube it and all that other good stuff, right? You can Google it. But what you are not going to be able to Google is this conversation that I'm about to have with him, because this is my goal. I want to talk to him, and I want to find out, Mr. Harris. Can I call you James?
Sure.
James, I
Absolutely.
want to know your story.
Yeah.
I want to know before you became Carver Jones, because we want to get in what all that stuff means. But I want to know, when you was a child, right? Where were you born, right? And let's start about around when you was. Let's go to about the age of 10.
Okay.
Did James see himself being the owner of Carver Jones Marketplace? So were you born here?
No.
Okay.
I was born in Louisiana.
Okay.
And at 10 years old, I was living in Houston, Texas, in in Fifth Ward. Anybody knows anything about Houston? Fifth Ward is not a place that you want to grow up in. It's a slum. It's, as we refer to it in those times, it was the ghetto. Okay, we were in the ghetto, and mainly just African American and Hispanic people. We loved each other. We did life together.
Okay.
And the year later, when I turned 11, my mom passed away, and it's five kids. I mean, very suddenly. Go to school one morning, she's fine. Come home and she's gone. And
so no type of warning.
No, none. Caught us all surprised. And my world just turned upside down. My mom was my best friend.
Okay.
And
What's your mom's name?
Mary.
Mary. Okay.
Mary, yeah.
Mary Harris.
Mary Harris.
Okay.
Actually, Mary Lee Harris.
Mary Lee Harris.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they wore that Lee out. I mean,
Mary Lee. Mary Lee.
Yeah, Mary Lee. James Lee.
Right. Like that was name James Lee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they made sure they put that Lee on there.
Yeah, just got to put that Lee
So
in there.
did people think that your last name was Lee?
I didn't. I made a purpose just to use the letter, not the full name. So I got to.
So are you James Lee Jr.?
James Lee Harris? No, I'm not a junior.
Okay.
Walter Lee was my dad's name.
Wow. So your dad married your mom. Did she already have Lee in her name too?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, it was crazy, man. I can tell you some stories about our lives and my wife and I.
Okay.
Our mother's names are the same.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, first name, not
okay.
last name.
Right.
First name.
Okay.
Our grandmother's names are the same. Which was common back that time.
That's crazy.
But different. She has a brother with my name, James. I have a sister with her name, first, middle,
Okay, James, what's
Unless-
going on with you?
That's what I said.
James, what is all
That's
this?
what I said. That's what I said. I go, okay. Well, when God speaks to me,
Mhm.
he has to make himself very plain. And so I married this girl 4 months later. I mean, it was
Wait a minute.
oh,
4
yeah,
months.
4 months.
Oh, so you knew.
Yeah. I
You
knew
knew.
from the very time I saw her that she was going to be my wife. I had never seen her before.
Mhm.
We lived 70 miles away. Yeah, it's a
You
crazy
got
story.
you got this divine thing going
Oh, yeah.
on here
Yeah,
for sure.
no doubt about it.
Yes, I can
God was
tell.
leading me, but he knows how simplistic I am, and so he had to make it very clear. And we've been married this year's 46 years.
46 years of lovely bliss.
Yes.
So
Well-
let's go back to 11 years old. Mom passed away. You came back home. You found out mom wasn't there. James, what happened?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. 2 years before in Louisiana, where we moved to,
Mhm.
my uncle, who was a minister, a Baptist minister, started building on a house.
Okay.
And he had no idea why. He just felt like it was something he was supposed to do. He finished the house, built 5 more bedrooms and 2 more baths onto it.
Mhm.
And most people thought he had lost his mind. It was kind of like the Noah thing. You got more than enough room for your present family.
Mhm.
So why are you building all this, adding all these rooms?
Right.
A month before my mom passed away, the house was finished, and they came and got us from Houston, Texas, and took us to Louisiana, and that's where we was raised, on a farm in a little town called Minden, which is about 5.5
Wait a minute.
hours
Wait
from
a
here.
minute. Wait a minute. A pastor was building a home, putting
Adding
more
on to
rooms
his
in,
house. Yep.
and he added rooms onto his house,
Mhm.
not knowing anything that was about to
None.
happen.
None.
Wow.
And so there's so many of these kinds of stories in my life
Mhm.
that for my sons and my grandkids,
Mhm.
I've got 4 grandkids. I'm writing a book that's being left for them that's called God Stories.
Okay.
And they're just, I think we all have them. We just
Mhm.
don't recognize them necessarily.
Mhm.
We contribute or attribute a lot of stuff to luck, hard work, and all those things. At least the hard work is part of that. But sensing that your life has a destiny to it, which all of us do.
Right.
I think I felt that early on in my life, and it's kind of helped guided my path, and it's carried me into some strange situations as well. And
Well,
so-
we finna get there because once your mom passed away, you went to go live at this house, and I heard you say a word I don't know if the audience heard. You said it was a farm.
there's a farm. That's right. We was
So
raised
how
on a
many
farm.
brothers and sisters was there?
Yeah, my uncle already had 2 boys.
Okay.
And there was 5 others.
Okay.
Of us. I have a brother and 3 sisters,
Okay.
and so there was all together 7 kids in that home.
Okay.
And so we were given 5 acres of land by a wealthy white man that lived behind us that wasn't using the property to just help provide food for us ourselves. And we did that. 5 acres will raise a lot of food.
Okay.
So that's what we did. We raised our own food.
So you started learning at a young age how to cultivate, grow,
And I
farm,
fell in love with it.
and you loved it.
I loved it.
So
I
the
loved
early
smell of the
mornings,
earth.
you
Yeah,
learned it
absolutely.
out there in the dirt.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you didn't play. Your play was in out there farming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can drive. So you know how to drive tractors. And
Oh
all
my
that.
God. But we didn't have a tractor.
Right.
My uncle was too cheap for that.
Right. So you was
Uh,
a tractor.
No, yeah, that's right. Well, a mule was
With the
tractor.
mule? Right. And you,
We-
you did the old.
old school.
Oh, okay. So
thing.
do you know how to milk cows?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Do you know how to change the horseshoes and
Oh,
stuff?
we didn't have a horse.
Okay.
The mule didn't have shoes. So,
Okay.
So
Okay.
we didn't ever have to do that kind of stuff. But
right.
but hogs, chickens, you name it.
Right.
We
So
had
you would
it
get
all.
the eggs and all that other good stuff. So you kind of fell in love with that.
I did.
So
I did.
and that was in. Was you still in Louisiana when
I
you
was
moved?
still in. All this is in Louisiana.
All that happened in Louisiana.
Yeah,
So when you went to high school, where did you go to high school at?
A little school called Derberly. I graduated after they integrated the schools from Minden High School, which is a 4A school.
Mhm.
Derberly was a Class B school, so it's a very small school. So when we went to Minden, which is about 5 miles from where we grew up at.
Mhm.
We were bused there, and so provided a lot more opportunity for us.
I gotta
Curriculum.
ask. Can I ask you something, James?
Sure.
Because this is interesting. Because I don't know if people knew this, but this is interesting. You went to school during the time of integration.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never sat down and asked anybody that actually went through that. Right. What was that really like for you during that time? You know, you being pulled from one way. Did you have to go to those schools?
Absolutely. We had to go
Or
to school.
there was people was chosen. What was
No,
this?
we all had to go. It was a zoning thing.
Uh-huh.
And so we just happened to be on the line of the zone within a half a mile. And everybody, that cutoff point, had to go to that high school.
First day, please tell me, because I've never had an interview with somebody I wanted to ask, what was that like, the feeling getting on that bus that morning, knowing that you was finna go to a school where people didn't like you?
Yeah, it was a little bit easier for me,
Mhm.
only in the sense that all these things occurred at the same time.
Okay.
In other words, I'm moving from Houston to Louisiana,
Mhm.
so we had changed schools anyway,
Right.
And so this happened, a few years after. But even in the school that we moved from,
Mhm.
it was already integrated. It was a
Okay.
small school anyhow.
Okay.
But this is going to be interesting. I played basketball and I was only black on the team.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did they accept you, or was it a forced thing? Like, we got to be nice to him because he's black and we're trying to, they're trying to integrate us. What was that?
Yeah, it was a neat situation. In other words, when you're a small school like that,
Mhm.
you just don't have a lot of people.
Mhm.
So having enough people to make up the team, was an issue.
Gotcha.
So I was pulled from the 8th grade to play varsity ball with them. Not because I was that good. I mean, I was okay.
Right.
I was a good guard, and that's what they played me at. But I was better than anything else they had out there in terms of what was available. So I got chosen. And the first few months was hell. It really was. Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget the first practice.
Mhm.
We get ready. I have no ride home. My coach told me, he said, "Look, I'll take care of it for you." What he did was was putting me in the car with some other guys that lived close to where I lived.
Mhm.
And they were to drop me off at the house on their way through.
Mhm.
And so the whole conversation, I call it the end test. Every other word was the end word, and I don't know. It was almost like the Lord had a hedge around my mind.
Mm.
It never penetrated my heart.
Wow.
And so at the end of that year, I was not only accepted, they treated me like I was one of the boys, and I didn't retaliate. I didn't make an issue out of it.
Mhm.
I kind of felt sorry for them that their vocabulary was that small, but they had to use that so many times. And so I have a friend that I've grown to really, really care a lot about. He has a saying, "If you can take it, you can make it."
Do you think that when that was happening to you, like you said, it was a test, but once y'all became at the end and you said it was better for you, were they still using that word, or were you calling by your name?
No.
Did they stop doing it themselves, or was
They
it something?
stopped doing it themselves. I never required of them anything.
Wow.
I felt like, and I still feel this way.
Mhm.
And I've my career, my life, a lot of my journey has been this, is that I feel every time I go out, I represent our race, and I want to represent our race well. I first represent my faith, and then I represent my race.
I love that.
And so I love to be able to be in those spots. To be honest with you, I'm very comfortable. Now I make a lot of other people uncomfortable.
Right.
They get uncomfortable because they get, it's almost like, I wonder how he feels. He's the only black guy in the room.
Right, right,
Oh,
right.
I'm fine, bro. I'm fine. I'd like to see you.
I done passed it.
swerve.
I done passed the
I done
test, sir.
passed the
I done
test.
passed the
Yeah,
test.
I done
Right,
passed
right,
the
right, right, right.
test. And so, but learning those lessons and
Mhm.
going through those things prepared me for
this.
the journey that I'm on now.
Wow.
You know, and I
Wow.
have been on for a number of years.
Did that time affect your grades because of what you was going through?
No,
So you
I-
was,
I-
how were you in school?
I was a school. So
So you was determined to prove. So
excellence. That was
Wow.
my motto. Excellence.
wow.
You know,
I like
wanted to
that.
present and represent our race of people well. And so you swallow a lot of things that you would, you know, that your emotions would say that you would react to.
Mhm.
But when you do that, you're giving control to somebody else.
Mhm.
And I didn't want anybody else to have that control. So
That's
I
beautiful.
controlled me. You know, I didn't let other people do that.
Wow. So when you left, what year did you graduate? If you mind me asking?
Yeah, I graduated in 1978.
Okay, I was 8 years old at the time.
Yeah, there you go.
So you
That's how
graduated.
old I
So you graduated in 78.
Mhm.
Did you have aspirations or where you wanted to go? Did you go to college?
Yeah.
So where did you go to college? Did you
Yeah,
get a
I went-
scholarship? How did that work out?
No, I went to college at a little school. Most people know it because of so many athletes that come out there. We call it Louisiana Tech. Most people call it La Tech. It's between
Really?
Ruston.
Okay.
It's in Ruston,
Mhm.
which is just 5 miles from Grambling
Mhm.
State University, where everybody knows
Right,
Grambling.
right.
So I went to school there because they had a good business college.
Mhm.
But I was working full time at the time I paid my way through school. I was going to pay my way through school.
Mhm.
I was working for one of the largest grocery retailers in the country, and called Safeway.
Okay.
And Safeway was at that time it was Safeway and Kroger's. They were the two big boys
In 1978,
in 1978.
I didn't even know Kroger's existed in 1978.
Oh yeah. And so Kroger's and Safeway were always neck and neck, and in terms of market share.
Okay.
Our little city had a Safeway, and that's where I got my first job at 15 years old.
So, did you get your first job at the grocery because you like farming, or that was just one of the jobs that you could get at the grocery board? What? How did that start?
Yeah, I just had aspirations of earning some good money, as people would say, good
Right.
money.
Get the good money.
Yeah, good money. Because Safeway was a unionized, it was union.
Mhm.
And so I was making more money per hour and netting more in a year than my high school teachers.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
So how did you start? I mean, when you started in Safeway, were you a grocery boy? You working in produce? What was that?
You start at the bottom.
Okay.
And we call them sack boys back then. They
Right.
courtesy Kurt, you know, that's it. But you sack groceries,
Right.
you rack bottles, you cleaned out restrooms, incinerators, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It was the bottom.
Right.
And then I went from there to produce, and then started working throughout the store. I was chosen to go through their management training program. And so I pulled back from college because I couldn't do both.
Mhm.
And it's working and owning a grocery store was really what I wanted to do.
Now I got to ask you this question in your story here now, because
Sure.
this is important.
Sure.
You were in college, a black man in 1978, right? You're making decent money,
Mm-hmm.
but you made a conscious choice to pull back from what we were told in 1978 to get that
That's right, get
education.
your
So this is why I want people. So I want to ask you, what was your mindset there?
Yeah.
And why did you do that?
For me, everything I do must be unto something. Okay. And so the purpose of going to school was to, if I got a degree, or when I got a degree, it was to go into business.
Okay.
And so if this gave me the same experience and the knowledge, and I can earn money at the same time, that's what's my mindset. The goal was always the same, to
Makes
own my
sense.
own business.
Right.
And so at 22 years old, I opened my first grocery store.
What?
Yeah. 22 years old, I opened my first grocery store.
Okay. You opened your first
grocery store. Yeah.
Wow. You opened in Louisiana?
In Louisiana.
What was the name?
It was called Extra.
Okay.
XTRA food stores.
Okay.
Yeah.
How in the world at 22? So you was able to get a loan? I mean, was it like a little room with some groceries in it, or was it a big grocery store?
No, it wasn't a big store. It's
Okay, okay.
And it was, we put a sandwich shop in it as well.
Okay.
So we took the space and divided it up. So it's more like a convenience store, if you
Okay,
will.
okay.
And then with a sandwich shop, a sandwich and coffee shop
Mhm.
in the rear.
So you sort of already kind of knew, well, sort of kind of, you knew, right? You had a dream and a goal of what you wanted. And it was, and going through your story, you started out on a farm, you found a love for food, you seen the process there.
Mhm.
You got your job because you needed money,
Mhm.
and it was in food, and you get big, the bag boy and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And then you took that experience and you said, okay, I'm not going to continue to do this for y'all. Y'all done taught me now.
Yeah. that's
Now it's
right.
time for me to
To
do
go
my own
stretch
thing.
out my wings and see if I can do it for myself.
So in your first grocery store, how was it?
Hard.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it was hard.
What was hard about it?
Everything, we were undercapitalized. At 22, I had already built my first home.
What?
Yeah. At 21, I built my first home.
You built it.
I had it built.
You had it built.
I had it built. Yeah.
Okay, so what am I missing? Because you had 22 in 1978, said you had a home built.
Yeah.
You opened up your first grocery store.
Mhm.
Good God.
Mhm.
We missed the train somewhere.
Well, for me, I was always a very focused individual.
We can tell.
I would really, I was careful with what I listened to.
Mhm.
I was very careful with who I listened to.
Mm.
I was so that information going in my mind, if it didn't produce something,
Mhm.
then I didn't want to get involved in it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, that part, you and I are so much alike, right? I want to ask you this here, because during all this time, right, everything you were doing, and from 21 to 22, was it? No, this question I want to ask you: who was your mentor
Yeah. Yeah.
during that time, or who
Yeah.
were you listening to?
Yeah.
Because at night, this is 1978,
Yeah.
when we had like 3 channels,
Yeah.
right, and a couple of stores
Yeah.
where we growing up at, right? And
Yeah.
my mom and dad in 1978, I think my mom was probably working at Miss Winters or Wendy's,
Okay.
and my dad was working at Britling Cafeteria,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And you said you was building your home.
Mhm.
My dad was just getting ready to move us over into West End
Okay.
to get our first home out of the brickyard over there in Loveland Village,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
But at 21, you already had a house, and you had. So, who was your mentor?
Yeah. You know, I love reading biographies
Okay.
of people's life. Booker T. Washington. I love my distant. I love Martin Luther King Jr. and what he stood for, what he was about,
Mhm.
the challenge that he the gauntlet that he threw out for our people.
Mhm.
You know, I never wanted the job because I was black. I just didn't want to be kept out of one because I was black.
Say that one more time. I love that.
Yeah. I never wanted a job because I was black.
Mhm.
I just didn't want to be kept out of one because I was black.
I love that.
Because if my credentials and what an employer was looking for
Mhm.
and was going after, they wasn't going to find anybody else that worked harder at it than I did,
I love it.
or be harder on themselves, because I didn't have this wording to it at the
Mm.
time, and I probably leaned toward perfectionism a little bit too strong, but I was hard on myself. I expected a lot
Mm.
out of myself. My wife would tell you, thank God she's not here, but
She's probably watching.
yeah. God forbid. But when I proposed to her, I had just bought a brand new Z28 Camaro. It was so popular at that time, and I loved that Z20. That Z, we call it the Z. High performance,
Yeah.
just rumble when it
Right.
goes down the street.
Right. Right.
Bought it off the car lot right then, and picked it out. It hadn't even been washed. Had a gallon of gas in it, and that was it. And
it.
so that's what I did. And so I'm going back and forth. Remember, I said it's 70 miles to her house. And I would drive down there, man, and drive back home. That's 140 miles.
Right.
And I told her one day, I said, we've been doing this thing for a few months and weeks, and at least a few months now, 2 months. I took a little time off because my grandmother, who I loved and adored, was sick, and so we took a hiatus, and I went to work. I went to spend time with her, and so there was about a month there we didn't see each other, and then we kind of, after my grandmother passed away, we got going. But after about a month more of that, I said, look, I'm driving 140 miles to see you.
Right.
That's my commitment. I'm committed.
Okay.
So if you're serious about this thing, then you need to let me know. But if you ain't serious about it,
I'm done with you. I gotta drink me a little coffee on now. Hold on, James. 2 months in.
yeah, 2 months in.
You talking balls.
I'm talking. Let's commit. I'm putting 140 miles on my car every time I come down here. And so I'll never forget the look she gave me.
The one we giving you right now.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, you lost your mind. I said, no, I'm just asking, because I didn't tell her this, but if you wasn't marrying material, you wasn't dating material.
Whew. Man, I'm learning some gems today. Woo, okay.
So I didn't do this recreational dating stuff. That's money, man. That's resources.
This is an investment.
That's right. That's right. And unto what?
Yes.
Unto what? So
this is you're my dad. You're my dad because you sound so much like I do right about now.
I just like, and so she looked at me and she goes, no, you're the one, basically. Now she'll word it in a long thing.
Right.
But I'm just boiling it down to the facts. Okay?
Right.
And so, yeah. So 4 months later, or 4 months into the relationship, we got married.
So did you marry her and you obviously moved to where you were?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Now she had her own home in Monroe. She's from it's not Low City. It's a much bigger city than where I grew up at. And her dad and mom were major figures in the community. Her dad was a jazz musician. Okay. He played with Ike Turner and some of these other guys early in the days. He's a sax player.
I play sax.
Did you?
Yeah.
Or do you?
Well, I can tinker around with it. Now,
Okay.
but I was really good.
I love to listen to jazz.
Yes.
I never got to that place where I was ever trust myself with the instrument. We still have her dad, Old Con, sax. Yeah.
Wow.
It's in the attic at home, but and her mom was a school teacher. Her dad owned several businesses. So she was one of those little girls that she was only child from not her biological mom and dad. They're adopted out of her family, but she's a beautiful, beautiful woman. She always has been, but she's this little petite, born in the city.
Right.
And I'm taking her to the country, culture shock,
I got to ask you this question because I see your face light up as you talk about your beautiful wife, right?
Yeah.
When you were going through your process of building your empire, building your own business, I mean, because that's basically what you was doing. You built a family at 21, James.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a house, you had a business. I'm finna get married to you in 4 months. I'm on a mission.
Yeah. And that's why I felt I was on a mission.
Yeah. So listening to you, I need to ask you this because this is important in the story for me. Was a wife part of the equation? Did you want a family along the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you knew that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
At 19, I just got to the place I was tired of just this overall dating thing, because it wasn't unto anything. There was, you investing your heart. And like I said, if there wasn't marrying material, I'm not saying it would be.
Yeah.
I would be marrying them, but why date them? Why waste that time and energy?
Mhm.
Why invest all that emotional energy? Because I'm one of those guys. I'm all in, and so if I commit to something, I'm all in.
I love it.
I'm all in. And so if you're going to do that, you're going to have to be careful about what you commit to.
Mm.
It's got to be, for me, and I'm not saying I don't enjoy, just, having fun or,
Right.
The things that most people enjoy. But
Mhm.
after that, it's all over. Where are you going?
Then what?
Then what? Yeah. What do you spend the majority of your time, energy, resources for?
Right.
So
It has to go. It has to have matter. Need to make.
yeah,
a point.
it needs to
make
matter
sense.
because you only got so much of it, right?
Right.
And so how you going to? So I've come to this at this stage in my life. I don't spend it. I invest it.
Wow.
So where am I investing in?
Mhm.
Is it going to give me returns? And it doesn't have to be in this life. It doesn't even have to be now.
Mhm.
But it needs to be unto something.
Mhm.
So Carver was birthed out of all that mindset.
Before we get to Carver, because that's a great story that I want to tell here, I need to ask you one more question about your lovely wife.
Sure.
How did she make you better?
Oh man, I was pretty country.
Mhm.
She is very. She is the essence of a lady.
Explain.
Yeah, I mean, you can be a woman.
Mhm.
I mean, that's genetic thing. To be a lady is a deliberate thing.
Oh, man, you dropping some gems on the coffee conversation today. If y'all just like it here right now, we got the one and only man, James Harris, the owner of Carver Jones Marketplace in the building today. And if y'all didn't watch the beginning of the interview, y'all gonna go back. But I got to get back to this story. Man,
Nobody has asked me some of this stuff. I hadn't gone down this road in a long
what did I?
time.
What, James? What did I tell you about the beginning? Of the
Yeah,
interview?
you did. You did. I should. I should.
This coffee is a
It's
conversation.
good. Yeah, it's good. And I think it's good from the standpoint. Not only it's just great conversation,
Mhm.
but I think it's also good if we go back and revisit, the things that we have invested in
Mhm.
and those that have invested into us.
Mhm.
And sometimes, and many times, those people are no longer with us in
Right.
terms of being alive on the face of the earth, but they invested in us. And I have a lot of people invested in me. Thus, I have a great debt to pay.
So your wife is the essence of what a woman is. Now I got to steal your words. How you put that now? A
Yeah.
woman?
Yeah, being a female is
Mhm.
or is a biological thing. Okay. But you have to make a decision to be a woman, be a lady.
Yeah, I love that.
To be a lady.
Yes,
and she's the essence of a lady.
You know, I'm finna steal the OG word, right?
Okay,
Next
go,
time I say
go,
woman,
go,
you're
go.
the essence of a lady.
She's the essence of a lady.
I love that. You know, I'm pretty good, cool, and charismatic with my words, but that word essence just it feels something.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So you got how many kids?
I've got 2 boys.
Okay, 2 boys.
And 4 grandkids.
And 4 grandkids. So did you give them the Lee genetic, the name with a Lee in the middle of it?
No.
Okay, you stopped.
We put that to bed. We put that. That's not with me. And we wasn't gonna do any juniors. My wife already told me,
Right,
we
no
ain't
juniors.
naming no juniors.
Okay.
We ain't doing none of that.
Okay, so you got
So,
2 beautiful sons.
2
And if you don't
sons.
mind me asking, how old are they?
Yeah, my oldest one just turned 45.
Okay.
And then the youngest one, who lives here,
Mhm.
is just turned 36.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got grown young men.
Yeah, they
Okay.
grown. They got families.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're very proud of them. Any grandkids?
Yes,
Okay.
4.
4
Each
grandkids?
one got 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one in Kansas City, who is the oldest, he has 2 boys,
Mhm.
and then the one here has his oldest is a boy,
Mhm.
and this youngest is a girl, and she's the only girl in the
Oh,
family.
that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I have two lovely daughters. One 32, and the other one is 22.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And my
10
daughter's
years apart.
10 years apart, and my daughters live in Japan because I was in.
Oh, really?
I was in military overseas for 13 years. So
Oh, man.
yeah, my daughters. Live
And
in
so
Japan.
they have chosen to stay there?
they live there. Yeah, their mom is there.
Okay.
They come here to visit. Actually, they came here last year to visit me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll show you a
Okay,
picture
that's
after the show.
great. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Sabrina and Selena.
great. Yeah. Okay, man. That's great.
So
great.
now let's get into the meat of what a lot of people want this conversation to be about.
Okay.
Since we know the story behind where we are now. When did Carver Jones come into play? Was it, when the kids were small, something the ideas that you and the wife had? You just saw something? Where did the name Carver Jones come from? I want to know this story because your
Sure.
name is James Harris.
Right.
Carver Jones can mean so many different things. So I'm going to let you tell us this story.
Yeah. Well, let me answer the first item you asked, and that is, I took a hiatus from the corporate world,
Mhm.
food world, for 7 years. Our church in Kansas City was growing by leaps and bounds, and part of my mindset is administrative, and I like to build things. I like to build structure to things. And so ever since I was 15 years old, this is in the, in the documentary, I had this idea of wanting to be a doctor.
What?
Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. And it wasn't until I got in college, I go, I don't think I want to do that. and the study, but I at the core, why I wanted to be a doctor is because I saw doctors help people in need.
Okay.
And so there's many other ways where that can, be exercised and done. And so when I was 15, I felt the call of God on my life to go into ministry. And ministry, as I saw it at that time, was just simply, preachers. That's what my uncle was. He was a minister, and I saw some other guys, and man, oh God, you would have thought I said I wanted to open up a drug, dealership on the corner or something. I got attacked by him and others like you would never believe. Who do you think you are as this little 15-year-old kid talking about becoming a preacher? And it crushed me. And so,
wow.
Yeah,
that's unusual in a black family.
Oh, it is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
But usually in a black
It's
family,
that's right. My you go down the list. My dad was a pastor. His dad was a pastor, and so on and so forth. And so it kind of blankets the family, and it kind of gives direction that this is what people want to do. That was not the case with my uncle. You think about it, it took me a long time to really unpack that because I didn't understand it.
Okay.
I thought I was wanting, that was a good thing, not a bad thing. But think about it in his mind and that day. Now, this is in the 70s, but he was still old school. And even in Birmingham, we can see this. What was attacked in the culture of the civil rights movement and other times it was the church, because the church and those pastors were the voice of those communities. It's where people really got the information from, who to vote for, what bill to, support, getting voting rights. All those kinds of things were birthed in terms of instruction, inspiration, direction, came out of the church. And so the church was a pivotal part of the building up of the Black community and very influential.
Yes.
And so, but after that time, I remember saying to God, I'll do anything you ask me, but don't you ever ask me to do that again. And then in 2000, starting really in 1998, that started really tugging on my heart to the point where it almost, I felt like I was going through, my wife said it wasn't a midlife crisis because you're too tight to be
Too focused.
To be a
Matter
crisis.
of fact, yeah.
But it was one of those things that was pulling me out of the day-to-day corporate world where I had all of the perks and things that hard work produces.
Right.
And and now I'm talking about going into ministry to help build our church
Mhm.
that were just exploding.
Mhm.
And so I gave in, went to work as associate and executive pastor of a church.
Wow.
And here's the caveat about all that.
Okay.
Growing up, I was always challenged in my place and mindset to never develop bigotry or hatred toward the white people. No matter what they did,
Mhm.
God gave me the grace to forgive. And that was a huge part of my makeup. And I thought sometimes he was being way too hard on me. And I even told him one time, I said, God, he wanted me to do something,
Mhm.
and this person had drastically, I would say, mistreated my wife and I. And I did it. It was the hardest thing I ever did. And but later on, I remember asking, why did you do it that way? And he goes, James, if I pull that stuff out of your heart in seed form, it's much easier than when it gets full grown.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How do God talk to you? Is it a feeling? Is it a thought? Is it an emotion? How is that for you? Because
I will tell you for all of us
Mhm.
at various times, it's all the above. Mainly, it's through His Word. I love teaching Scripture. I love history and those kind of things, and I see a lot of that in the way in what Jesus did. I mean, if we're followers of Christ, and the simplest analogy, that means He leads, we follow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So His Word, the written Word of God,
Mhm.
is forever settled. It's not for debate. It's forever settled.
Gotcha.
Misunderstandings, misinterpretations, all those kinds of things exist,
Mhm.
and they happen.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's not easy to understand, because just like it would be today, we would use comments that if it was interpreted in other times, like if we interpreted it in the past,
Mhm.
With language that we use today, it was interpreted in the past, it would be misinterpreted because of the way we use it today is not the way they used it then.
Right.
And so there's a lot to be said, but God's word is His will, and His will is His word. You can't separate those two. And so anytime I hear God's voice, as I say it, it sometimes seems audibly, but I haven't ever heard the audible voice of God, but I know His voice when I hear it. Okay.
Understood.
And direction. And then I can also go back and look at His word. He may not say, move to Birmingham.
Right.
Okay. Thank God He didn't, but but I did anyway. I mean,
Right.
that's what happened. I felt led of God to come here. And here we are.
Right.
It made no sense to my common mindset
Mhm.
to do this. Didn't know anybody, never had been here
Mhm.
other than just flying through the city. Only knew its history.
Right.
Why move to Birmingham?
Right.
But I can tell you, I'm supposed to be here. I can tell you, I love the city. I love the people.
We love you.
Yeah, and so I'm so happy to be here. Kansas City now is where I come from. It's not where I live.
Wow.
It's
I
not
love
my
that. So you're getting ready to, you was in ministry, the associate
pastor.
pastor.
Of an all-white church, but
Oh, you left that caveat out there. Wait a minute.
97% white.
Wow.
I tell people I was the most loved black man I know.
Wow. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that's another story.
That's a whole nother story. I'm going to get that story, but not today. So what made you leave? I'm not going to say when you left that situation, because you never left the church.
Mhm.
So when you left that situation, where did Carver Jones come from? The idea, what was that?
Yeah, it started at looking at the need of communities.
Mhm.
Right there in and Kansas City.
Okay.
Kansas City has some Fairfields.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
As any city does. Okay. And I was in prayer that came out of a 21-day fast. And I asked the Lord, I'm looking at all the needs, I'm looking at all the situations. And I said, isn't there a better way? And so all the things started, I started searching for what was being done in other parts of the country when it came down to, I wanted to be able to serve people with excellence and the poor. God never gave us secondhand anything growing up. I mean, we pulled stuff out the ground. We're the first person to see it,
Right.
and to take of it. And it was always fresh. It was always great. It was always good. It meant that we had to participate in the process. But I wanted something, if I can say it this way, that represented the kingdom of God well. Wow. And that meant, the best. So how could I help facilitate that?
Mm-hmm.
And so a charity was born out of that called Harvest Community Charities. Okay.
That's where that comes from.
That's where it comes from.
I read that in the bio.
Yeah. And in 2008, we launched it in Kansas City, and we worked with faith-based organization. We were never the front face of it. We didn't want to be that, but we wanted to support them. So I had relationship in the food industry, as you can imagine, after being there for so many years.
Right.
And so I used those relationships to help churches buy fresh, nutritious food at the cost of, that retailers were paying for it.
Right.
So that's what we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you started at the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
but now we're at Carver Jones.
Yes.
What was the process for that?
Yeah. When we got to really studying and just taking the problem up under magnifying glasses, we came to understand that there was multiple ways to meet these needs, and not every one of them were the same. In other words, there's no silver bullets that's going to solve all the need problem.
Gotcha.
Carver Jones was created because we saw the trend that had been taking place 20 years before, and that was still taking place, that were creating some problems, not necessarily with people that didn't have money. They had money to a degree,
right,
but they didn't have all the other necessary resources to go to the suburban markets that you would find out of the inner cities to be able to shop. They didn't have anything in a 3 to 5 mile radius of their homes.
Right.
And so there's over 3,500 of those locations, and predominantly in African-American communities around the South and in the South and Southeast. And so nobody was really addressing it. A lot of people were talking about it, but the retailers were not the answer, and they knew that. And for a few of those, I'll go back when Obama was in office, his first term, Michelle Obama started initiatives to rid communities of food deserts. They put an awful lot of money in the program. They incentivized a lot of the big boys. I won't name them on the program, but everybody knows who they are.
Right.
And then after 3 years, at the end of that term, beginning of the second term, less than a third of those stores was ever built, and many of those were built had closed. And so they were trying to take a traditional approach, and traditional approach won't work for these communities.
So for the people who not understand when you said a food desert, explain that.
Yeah. The USDA describes a food desert as a 3 to 5 mile radius where you can't find fresh, nutritious food.
Okay.
And what they really are talking about that is fresh meat and fresh produce, because those two categories affect the diet more than anybody else. Alabama is in the top 10 poorest states in the nation. It has been as high as number 1 in food-related diseases. And it's mainly contributed to the diet or availability of having fresh, nutritious food in their communities. Now you got the Dollar Trees, the dollar stores, and General Dollars and Family Dollars, but they don't supply
The
fresh, nutritious food. to Dollar General's, I'll say this about them. They're trying to change that narrative and where they go, because they got a lot of stores. They'll put a lot of stores in rural communities and areas like that. But generally speaking, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to take what you've been doing in dry food and try to integrate fresh food into it as well.
Well, I think for me is growing up, and as I became an adult and came back here, right, to Birmingham, Alabama, I didn't know the word food desert. But when I came back from the military in Japan, this bothered me to the point where I grew up at was thriving and booming when I left.
And didn't see it when you
and
came
then when
back.
I came back, everything was closed.
That's right.
And when things were reopening, it wasn't open up to anything thriving.
That's right.
It was opening up to pawn shops.
Mhm.
It was opening up to pay now, pay here. It was the Dollar Trees and the dollar stores. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about those places, but when you go to other neighborhoods, the other suburbs of neighborhoods, right? You didn't see that kind of stuff.
That's right.
And so for me, it's like, okay, if I'm going to work, or people in this community is going to work in these different places, why aren't we have these nice places in our communities, right? And people will go back and say, well, you don't spend the money, you don't do this here. No, from what I understand from the little study, you can help me about this more better.
Sure.
We're one of the biggest populations that spend money in other communities.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
And the Black community, when we do market studies, and we're required to do those, okay? And we need to, it's our due diligence to do that. But what happens is that we look at not just the level of income a person has, a household income. That's important, but we don't necessarily look at discretionary income, which is a big piece of the evaluation tool that a larger chain will look at, because they sell a lot of other things that's outside the basic need of fresh meats and fresh produce. Okay. So they're looking at it from a whole different perspective.
Right.
And they don't change their models to fit these communities. Carver Jones is created for food deserts. It's done it for its size, variety. We do our very best with price points, but we still try to get good service, and we try to have a store. We wanted to have a store that could thrive in any community, not just the African American community.
Right.
In other words, the quality of store, the quality of service would be appreciated and welcome in almost any community.
Yes.
That's what we wanted to do.
Yes.
And so that becomes the thriving piece out of that. The difficult part of what we do that is really hinged on the people in the community and their buy-in into what we're doing. I tell people we're not doing this for people, we're doing this with people. They have a part to play. If they don't shop the store, it won't survive. It's just that simple. It's foot traffic. You've got to spend your money there. And so when you've, like Fairfield, been a city that's bankrupt, that hadn't had a grocery store for 9 years, all of those tax dollars, sales tax dollars of its 10,000 residents are going out someplace else to spend their grocery dollar. It's a slippery slope. Those dollars are there. When the market study came back on Fairfield on that location, we actually did 2 locations.
Okay.
We did another one building an old Walmart building off Aeronaut Drive on the other side of town, which would have been a much bigger store if we go that direction. But that there was, what a market study does is drop a pin in your location and it does a 5-mile radius around it. And in this case, it took in some of Birmingham, Bessemer, Hueytown, those communities as well, and all those retailers in that community, and how much dollars are being spent based on the population in that 5-mile radius.
Right.
And that store in that community of Fairfield there's more than $500,000 that goes out of that community in grocery dollars that are not shopping in any of that 5 mile radius every
Really?
week,
Wow.
weekly.
Well, I was part of it.
Yeah.
I was part of it
Yeah.
until I went to Carver
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
going to one of those other stores on my way home. I would stop by there.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had to get out in the community early on, try to get the buy-in of the community by giving them weigh in. In other words, asking their opinion. And we still do that. If people want something that they don't find in the store, they let us know because we're serviced by one of the largest wholesalers in the country. And so there's very little we can't get.
Say that one more time for the people in the back, right?
Okay. Yeah. We're serviced by one of the largest wholesalers in the country. They are not a local company, however. They're Kansas based company. But they got 12 warehouses around the country. They serve 32 states. They're almost a $13 billion company.
So from what I hear, James, basically what you're saying is Carver Jones can get anything that
That's
you need.
right.
That's what I hear you saying.
That's
right?
exactly
okay.
right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
I love it.
That's exactly right.
Now, the buy-in with the weigh-in.
Yeah.
Right. I love the way you put
Yeah.
that. And this is a question I have to ask you because when you was talking a little bit before the show, I think I know people are going to buy in.
Mhm.
I don't know if people don't know about it.
Okay.
That's the thing I would say.
Okay.
But I think this is another piece that I see myself personally from an entrepreneur's standpoint of view is that just not people walking through the foot traffic to your store.
Mhm.
We need other entrepreneurs to get into those buildings around there.
Absolutely. And that's, if you look at history of any cities, almost at any time period, I like to go back in the 1920s and look at what we all call, or has been called, Black Wall Street, which is Tulsa, Oklahoma in the early 1900s. And because of segregation, we're not in the same era of time.
Right.
So that model in and of itself would not work.
Right.
Because we got transportation
Right.
that can get us anywhere we want to go.
Right.
If we don't want to buy here, we can go where we want to buy, right?
Right.
But they didn't have those choices at that time.
Right.
So they were forced to spend their dollars where they could spend their dollars.
Right.
A dollar, by the way, is green. Doesn't matter who puts it on the table.
Right.
It buys the same thing.
Right.
So, but without the buy-in and the foot traffic of people in the community, the store won't survive. It's just that simple.
We're going to make it survive. So the store's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
That's
I believe that to be true.
That's
I mean,
where I'm
we've
saying-
weathered a lot of storms.
Yeah, I'm locked in.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like you said, when you focus on something, so do I, James.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you're not going anywhere. But I think, one thing that I see, and people watching this, man, make sure you share the video out there and make sure that you guys go down to the Carver Jones Marketplace. And where's it located?
4800 Gary Avenue.
So make sure you guys go down there today,
Fairfield. Yeah.
tomorrow, the latest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And get some foot traffic going through that place. But also entrepreneurs. And I'm going to talk with you and maybe sit down with the mayor or whatever. But we need to put something together for entrepreneurs to.
Well, and that's part of our goal.
Okay.
The way the store is structured, Carver, I want to talk just a second
Sure,
about
sure.
the name.
Sure.
The name was chosen by our marketing company after spending almost a year with me and just hearing what I wanted to be about with my life, just similar to what we've done here. And Carver is George Washington Carver.
So it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. Yeah. It's named after George Washington Carver.
Okay.
Frederick McKinney Jones, very few people know, but they know his invention.
Mhm.
He invented the first refrigerated truck. It's called Thermo King today. It's one of the largest ones. He invented portable refrigeration.
Sure.
So air conditioners and all those things.
I did a
came
book
out of
report
that.
on him.
Yeah. So you understand. So
Yes.
you understand the legacy.
Yeah.
These men were born in two different eras of time. Of course, George Washington Carver was a slave.
Mhm.
And yet, even in their era of time, the difficulties of their race,
Mhm.
they still done great things with their lives.
Sure did.
And as a matter of fact, their inventions are still blessing mankind today, even though they've been dead long ago.
Right.
And that's the essence of what we want to create for young African-American men and women. Why is that true? Because there's only 27 Black owned grocers in the nation. We make 27. So we want to build a model. We want to build that community. And so what we like to do, we've developed, I spent almost a year with Chick-fil-A and got a chance to understand what made them what they are. And people would think they got a just shot out of a cannon training program. They got a good program. They got a very good training program. But they create an environment that makes people better when
Yes.
they're in an environment. You know, so if you're not a customer focused person, you're not going to feel comfortable in that environment. You know, maybe you go to the kitchen, you go in the rear, or you just go home, you know, go find you another job. But they create a system like that. The other thing is it allows ownership. You know, they call their store owners owner operators. The reason they call them that is because they don't own the store, the building, the fixtures, those kind of things. That's owned by corporate. But their job is to build the business within the community by getting to the community and letting the community know them and them know the community well, and servicing, sponsoring different things and functions. But the better that store does, the better that owner operator does. I know a couple of owner operators that I know of one lady that owns 2 franchises right here, and she does over $1 million a year. No, we can't do that because we make 5 cents on the dollar. You know, they making 60%
Right.
gross margin. We're a whole lot less than that.
Right.
But we want to put more stores in the market. And so the Fairfield store is a prototype. It's a training facility that we want to use to train people going forth as we build more stores.
Well, one thing I noticed when I visited your store, you had all young people working there.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes. We want 50% of our workforce to be made of high school and college age students, people. Why? At the end of the day, you hear me talk about Endgame a lot. Those are the ones that are dying on the streets of our city. And getting in relationship with people, loving on kids, getting them to see. Sometimes we have kids coming there and this is their first job, you know, and so they're learning a skill. They're learning a trade, and it's not that they will be, because maybe they don't have the aspiration of being store owner, operator, or doing something in in the business, but they still will develop skills that will serve them for a lifetime.
And if you're in the right environment, because this is what I was when I was a kid, once you get in the right room, you learn to read the room and you find
That's
out
right.
what fits you.
That's
right. So it may not be produce, but it may be management.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? It may be entrepreneurship.
That's right.
But you got to get in a room where the people are going to share the knowledge. Right. And from what I'm hearing,
so that's what we endeavor to do. So we're creating, I've got some friends that are doing some things as well, but we like to create our own training program that they go through. It's probably going to be as much of a year. There's classroom time as well as hands-on time. So we want to, that's part of the,
you know who you sound like. You know how you sound like, right?
What's that?
You know exactly who you sound like, right? A.G. Gaston School, before they put the people,
really? I didn't know
because
the
the secretaries and all that stuff.
Yeah, no.
Right? A.G. Gaston had a school where they had to go through, and then once they sent them to the school, he would take those secretaries, right, and place them in different corporate places.
Okay.
Yeah. So A.G. Gaston,
I didn't know that.
That's you.
Okay.
You're basically doing what was already done.
Yeah.
And bringing it back.
Yeah. I think a lot of what we're doing has been done. Yeah. And we're bringing it back.
Skill set.
That's right.
They took the shops out of the school.
Right? Oh my God.
I think that hurt us a lot.
It did.
Because once you leave school, even if you drop out, now you have you're not a value to the marketplace.
That's right.
At all.
That's right.
And I see a lot of young men that come in my path. I asked myself, what is your value to the marketplace? You know what most of them, I'm going to say 99% of them to me say to me, what is that?
Yeah. They don't understand it. And they don't understand how to increase their value.
Yes.
you know, and it's very tragic.
So what is the end game here for you seeing with this Fairfield store? What would you like for us, the people that's doing this right now? What can we do to help you?
Yeah. I think number one is help it be successful by shopping it. That's number one. Because at the end of the day, if the dollars don't run through the register, you can't pay the bills.
Right.
And it's just that simple.
Right.
Fairfield was not in a place at the time. They were bankrupt.
Mhm.
They could help none at all in terms of, reducing some of the startup costs or helping with that and any
Subsidies and
kind of
stuff like that.
subsidies,
Yeah.
any of those kind of things. We have in our mindset, in our model, even if the city is small or whatever, that we're collecting sales tax for them because grocery stores don't pay sales tax. They collect sales tax.
Mhm.
So we collect the state, the county, and that city's sales tax. That's what makes up the nearly 10%
Mhm.
of taxes that the customer is charged. Well, 4% of that goes back to that existing city. So Fairfield is getting money that they haven't got for 9 years in this business. So part of the model is to rebate 2% of that back to the entity to help offset some of the startup costs that it'll incur.
Wow. Now I love that. So Carver Jones Marketplace is a place where you can learn a skill. You can go shopping in a nice, clean environment,
Mhm.
right? And it's very sad, Mr. Jones. I mean, Mr. Harris, for me to sit here and say that your store is clean. Your store,
I know, but we all
it's
know
okay.
that. I
Right,
hear
you know
that
what I'm
all the
you know
time
what I'm
from
saying?
people.
The customer service is great, and it's like we don't never go to any other store and say that.
That's
But
right.
when we go to one of our stores, this is what we have to say.
That's
Which
right.
means what you're doing something right.
Right.
And
right.
before I go on this interview, I want to say thank you
Oh,
personally
no, it's an honor.
for what the vision that you have, the things that you have done and will continue to do for this community, the dream that you're building. You said that Martin Luther King is that guy for you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say he's living through you right now because you're our guy.
Yeah.
Right. Today, James Harris is our Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
You are doing on another level through ministry, through the workplace, through the communities, right? You are the modern day Martin Luther King for us.
Well,
And I thank you.
that's a high honor and a big shoes to follow, but he paved the way for us.
Mhm.
He was a pioneer in his time. I feel myself to be that. And the thing that one must understand about pioneers is that those that come after you will need that path to follow. It'll save them a lot of time.
Mhm.
So they'll do it faster than you did it. They'll do it better than you did it. But the point is, as a pioneer, they couldn't have done it at all if you hadn't have gone.
Exactly. One last question.
Sure.
I hope y'all enjoyed this, man. This has been, for me, one of my best interviews I've ever had because I got to ask some questions that I've never been able to ask before. But I want to ask you the last question. What would you tell the 15-year-old James Harris today?
I would tell him to continue to dream. Continue to dream. Continue to realize that God has a destiny. You were created for a purpose. Find that purpose. I read a quote just the other day. You may have heard this. There are two great moments in your life. One is when you were born, and the other is why. And so when you find those two things, life just makes sense. And you know what to say yes to, and you know what to say no to, because it's going to either compel you further down the road or it's going to hinder you. And so you get the chance to make the choice by the trip you're going on.
Oh, I forgot. It is one more thing because someone asked me, wanted to make sure I knew the answer to this, but how fresh is your produce?
Yeah, we get produce 3 times a week. Yeah, 3 times a week. Now we're going into the season of being able to pull from local farms. We've got some Black-owned farmers in Selma and the Black Belt that we're going to be pulling from.
Okay.
So a lot of green season leafy greens,
Mhm.
turnips, mustard, collards are coming to an end because when it gets hot, they tend to burn
Right.
very, very easily.
Mm.
And so we're coming to the end of that season. But those came less than a day picked from Georgia into our market. And now we're getting ready to get peaches, melons, all the soft
When I
fruits.
walked into your store and I saw the fresh produce there, I was blown away.
Yeah.
I'm like, when I walked in your store, you wouldn't believe it's there. It's like when you walk into the store, you're no longer in Fairfield.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a great
I
thing.
appreciate that. No,
But when you
I
walk in the
appreciate
store,
that.
right, it's like Fairfield is what it is on the outside.
That's right.
But when you walk into Carver Jones, you're walking into it's a whole new world. You know what I mean? Because the license there is bright. The shelves look like you in the other stores.
Mhm.
The customer service is way better than the other stores.
Mm.
This is what I'm gonna say about you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Harris, your staff is 20 times better than the average grocery store staff out there. I didn't see anybody on their cell phone.
Yeah.
I didn't see anybody talking with a little piece in their ear.
Uh-huh.
They was very intentional.
Mhm.
When you walked in, they greeted you. They
Mhm.
asked you, did you need anything?
Yeah.
The guy at the cash register, man, I like been knowing him for years. Sir, is there anything we can do for you? Did you find everything? I'm like, am I fair? So kudos
Thank you.
to the Carver Jones Marketplace team, staff, the creator behind it. Now we know why they're so focused, right? Because of who actually created the system.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to put out there about Carver Jones Marketplace?
Yeah, I think the thing is I would ask people of both Fairfield and the city,
Mhm.
Other cities surrounding, is just give us a shot, give us a chance.
Mhm.
Let us earn your business. Let us just give us a chance to serve you.
Mhm.
And whether you stay or you go, you've had the experience. And we either make it work for you or we don't.
Wow.
But it won't be because you didn't come, So just come. That's all we need. We need foot traffic. We're at a place right now. You do performers on the stores and you build what needs to be the expectation of it. We're about an average of 25 people a day increase we need, and spending an average of $25
That's it.
for sustainability. That's it. That's it.
We're gonna make that happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the conversation, everybody. Filter Coffee Parlor right here live. You guys can grab your coffee. James, what can I say? Grab your coffee. Let's put our coffees together here. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for having it with me. Guys, you make sure you go down to Carver Jones Marketplace. All right. And don't tell them I sent you. Just go in there. We just need 25 people. And the only thing you got to spend is $25. So I've already done that. So when I leave here, I'm going to spend $25 more, right? So make sure y'all go ahead and do the same thing. Carver Jones Marketplace down in Fairfield. We want to thank the owner for taking his time out of his busy schedule from planning other things and being in the store. He took time today to come down here to have a conversation with your boy. Next week, we got y'all. Watch social media. Y'all find out what's going on next week. It's your boy Joe Lockett, man. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Enjoy the rest of your day, y'all. And go to LIM Network on YouTube to rewatch this show. All right. Make sure you guys subscribe. We love you. Have a great day.